Clerk, would you please call the roll? And do we have either of our fellow council members on remotely? They are not. They are overseas and hope to join. Whether they are able to do so remains to be seen, but I note the presence of a quorum in any event. Here. Here. Madam Clerk, just been advised that Councilmember Kay has joined remotely. Okay. The first item of business is approval of the minutes of our last council meeting on July 7th. Fairly extensive. They've been circulated to council members in advance. Any questions or comments or further edits to the minutes?
I had a minor edit that the clerk made.
Incorporating that without any other changes, the minutes are deemed approved. The next agenda item is citizen comments on agenda items only. Are there any citizen comments? So the next agenda item is, I'm sorry, Mr. Woolahan.
Harry Woolahan, 406 No Egret. Hi, good afternoon. First off, I'd like to thank Craig Harris. I know it's not on the agenda, but for his work with the fire department on the fire alarm blitz. It's a really good project, and his help is very much appreciated. Some people on John's Island, maybe here, I don't know, use kerosene for cooking, and Woolmanor doesn't have fire hydrants, etc. So fire alarms are very important. Anyway, I'm here to address the Conservancy project. I don't really expect any answers now, but I have some questions and comments. Currently, we have the Sea Island and Charleston conservation programs. The island in the past has actually benefited from Charleston Conservancy items. We had a fishing dock, 120,000, and some other facilities granted in the past. So why, when we have these two, do we need to have our own? And what's the driver for this proposal? Second, in the proposal, there's a mention of zoning requirements cannot be achieved because they might be amended in the future. So is that really a good reason for taking potential change to this away? I mean, I'm just reading a comment. I may be wrong in my interpretation, but if that's a reason, you know, zoning can be amended. Future people might want to amend zoning. Obviously, a lot more detail has to be done, but you know, there's no mention of scoring criteria, which brings me on to the next comments. The committee for approval or initiation of the projects is largely drawn from those from an environmental background. I would just question where's the balance. I know the board has to decide on what's actually submitted to the board, but if there's no balance in what's submitted, and people are from an environmental background, and I'm all for the environment, but again, is there a balance to the committee coming up with these ideas? Another comment is, it looks to me like basically a sixth of the land covered by this conservancy is actually Kiowa land. I may be wrong in that, it might be a fifth. So why are we going so far out? I know we border a big area, and because of the rivers, etc. It really is it really to the benefit of the island? And again, I have no problem in helping out other bits of the community, but I still have that question. What is the administration cost likely to be? And what is the scale of the funding likely to be? Also, a comment, once a year reporting of the fund, which is separate to the committee, advisory committee, is 1 year reporting in the early stages adequate? And again, I mentioned other resources. We had funding from Charleston before. I noticed Folly Beach got 10 million in 25 and 2 million in 26 from Charleston for drainage projects. And again, are we getting enough resource in from other funding opportunities to actually look after the island? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wolahan, for those questions and comments. I anticipate that many, if not most of them, will be touched upon during the discussion later in the agenda. Any other citizen comments on agenda items? Seeing none, we next have a presentation and update from Crown Castle, and I will turn to Councilmember Spencer to kind of frame where we are in this process. It's been ongoing and under his leadership and working with the town staff. So please, Councilmember Spencer.
Thanks, and we have Kyle Davis from Crown Castle today, as well as representatives from the carriers. Many of you recall we're about 2 years into trying to address and improve our telecommunications, cellular in particular in this aspect, infrastructure for public safety, quality of life, for alternatives for broadband connectivity in our homes, things like that. Crown Castle, as well as American Tower and others, have been very helpful in assessing and looking at ways that we can make improvements to our cellular infrastructure. Crown Castle has 4 sites on Kiowa. There's also one American Tower site. There is a site that is hosted by Berkeley Electric. And then the final site that's actually on the island proper is for resort guests primarily, but it does have coverage for the surrounding area as well. The island's plagued with huge coverage gaps, mostly LTE coverage, which is pretty inferior to the demands of modern communications today for emergency response, for quality of life, like I mentioned, things like that. Crown Castle's been a really strong partner, as well as American Tower and the carriers, in helping us, first of all, understand what kind of constraints the community was putting on them that was prohibiting investment, which is they pay for this infrastructure, so prohibiting that investment. And that resulted in an updated ordinance for cellular infrastructure that the Planning Commission, ultimately Town Council, approved right about this time last year to recognize what it takes to provide modern communications that our community needs. We've been going through the not so glamorous parts the last year or so since then. Site assessment, site planning, all the stuff that goes into getting it right when we actually do it. So Kyle and team are here to give us an update where we're at, because some things are going to start happening. It's still about a year till we're going to start seeing the first site come online, 15 months, because it takes a while. There's construction, there's planning, there's a lot of things that move to make it happen. Kyle stepped that through that a little bit, and then be available to answer any questions that anybody might have. I will add one more thing, and thank you to Mr. Taylor, who's been my partner in crime on this, the Planning Commission tomorrow, which you'll probably touch on, Kyle, is looking at a zoning implications. Very minor, but we're adjusting a boundary. The resort has been a great partner, Plowman in particular, in helping us assess the sites, because the 4 Crown Castle sites, which I'm hoping I'm not taking too much of your briefing, are hosted at the resort. So working through some property line changes, which result in a little minor zoning change and adjustment that the Planning Commission is going to review tomorrow. So Kyle's going to catch us up to where we're at and where we're going.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that
Thanks.
background, Lance.
And do you mind introducing your team real quick?
Absolutely. It's a great backdrop. So my name is Kyle Stewart. I work as
Stuart, I called you Davis. I don't know why I did that.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. There's no offense taken. My name is Kyle Stewart. I work as Public Policy Manager at Crown Castle. I assist with external and government affairs. And today, our team, our subject matter experts are in the room. And I just wanted to make sure, as we work through our agenda today, we'll be able to go through those introductions with our team. We'll be able to review some of those sites that Lance talked about. We'll go through a timeline, an estimated timeline of our lead site, which is called Ocean Course. And we'll show that the replacement tower example, as well as what that coverage will bring to the island. So without further ado, with me here is Jason Martin to my left, Zaki Mohammed to my left as well, and Aaron Wilson. Jason's our site acquisition manager, Zaki is our RF engineer, and Aaron is very close to the project and understands a lot of the complications, a lot of the intricacies of the island, and it's great to have all of us here today to really just give you a background of what is on the island and what we're intending to do with replacing the current coverage here in some of those towers. So on this slide, you'll see Lance already kind of shared a little bit about where we're at on the island. You'll see we're located in Ocean Course. We have a site called Cougar on Kiowa Beach Drive. We have a site named Turtle on 1 Governor's Drive, and we have a site called Osprey on 700 Governor's Drive. For the purpose of our presentation today, we're going to focus on Ocean Course. Ocean Course is the lead site in our on all of our towers here on the island. We anticipate working through updating Ocean Course with the other 3 sites to follow shortly thereafter that completed timeline. So what we'll see here is our estimated timeline with Ocean Course, and really wanted to point out, so last week, 2 weeks ago, we were able to sit down with John and Lance and some of our industry partners and really review some of the needs on the island, but also it allowed us to kind of reestablish our relationship and share with not only John and Lance some of the progress we've made, but also what our commitment to the island and what we're ready to really jump right into, leading off with this estimated timeline at Ocean Course. So here we are, it's August, we're presenting to Town Council, and next month we're gonna get right into our pre-zoning administrative side, which will include balloon testing. And so we really wanted to make sure the community was aware as we moved on to the next step of this project timeline, that you'll probably start seeing some balloons pop up in your community. Now, we have to put a balloon up at these sites for a 10-hour period to make sure we can understand some of the physics as it relates to the coverage of the area. And so I wanted to make sure that it was one of the first things we mentioned to everyone here today is that we're here, we remain committed to the community, and part of that is gonna allow us to put some balloons up on our assets and really understand the coverage areas. And it's gonna be happening soon. And so just making y'all aware, as we move into the timeline, you'll see our zoning review will occur in October. And at this time, we also put in some of our regulatory and environmental reviews that really take 6 months and is a big piece of how we can move forward in some of our next steps. So as we go through our zoning review here with the town of Kiowa, we'll also get into some post-zoning engineering in December, and we'll be applying for our building permit early next year in February. And we are anticipating with this estimated timeline by March, all of those reviews will be complete. And when those reviews are complete, we'll be able to move forward with our pre-construction side of the house, and we'll be able to get all of that administrative stuff done. With the goal in this estimated timeline is to move to tower construction in October of 2027. So there's a couple different pieces that are also at play here, and when we think about some of the environmental factors that happen, whether it's migratory birds or some of the other kind of factors that really kind of help us understand what's best to build and when to build. We know that there is a nesting season from March to October, so we really can't start kind of touching some of these towers till after that nesting season's over. And so you'll see this estimated timeline kind of really just takes that into consideration. And beginning in October of next year, we'd love to be constructing our tower, and by the end of the year, our carrier customers will be moving on to that tower as well.
Kyle, just one quick question.
Yes, sir.
To go back, how does the balloon testing help you understand your coverage area? Are you putting radios in the balloon, or are you doing visual, or how do you do this?
It's a great question.
It's more visual. It's not to help with the coverage, but it's more for the community to see what the proposed tower, the height will be. So we're going to have a balloon test at each one of the sites. They will be at the stated height of the proposed tower, and they will be there for 10 hours. And it just gives the community the chance to have a visual of what this tower, the height that it's going to be.
So it's aesthetics for us, not, oh, great. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that clarification. And what
Just on that point, and I don't know what discussions have had about coordination and communication. It's going to be critically important that we get the message out to the community when those balloons are going to go up well in advance.
100%. And we'll be sure to communicate that. And another point of us wanting to talk about that today was to really just make sure you all are aware of that as we kind of move forward here.
I would add in that communication that if they see the balloon, that's a good thing. It means you'll get better cell coverage.
It's fair. It's a fair
That's
point.
probably the main thing you want to emphasize.
Yes,
They
sir.
want to see the balloons.
Absolutely. And so we'll anticipate, by the end of next year to hopefully have the Ocean Course, this estimated timeline complete, and coverage at Ocean Course really increased. And the balloon testing, right, we're going to do them on all 4 sites. So while we are specifically, zeroed in on Ocean Course today, that those balloons will be popping up on all of those 4 sites that we previously shared in the slides.
Kyle, I've got a question from
Yes, Lance.
Councilmember Kay. She says she can't communicate in, but she's hearing us.
Okay.
And this may be more for the staff, but she's asking, since nesting season varies per bird population, are they involving Erin, which is our town biologist, in the process? So I think the answer will be yes, if it isn't already. Is that correct, John? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we have a whole migratory birds team, so we do work with a lot of our experts in-house to make sure that we're following the environmental regulations and then we're following everything to the T and making sure that we can really access the sites and really take the next steps to deliver connectivity to those radio screens.
Thank you.
Of course. And so here you'll see a little bit of what we've already done. And so this is a completed, in progress, and next step kind of review of where we're at with Ocean Course. And so we've done our site walks, we've done the preliminary tower and ground design. We've also kind of reached terms with some of our, with the resort, and we've identified the need to rezone the parcel. So that rezone is happening currently, and that is really moving to the in progress section now. And so we're reviewing our proposed business terms with our carrier partners. We're continuing those conversations with council and our stakeholders to coordinate these efforts. And a lot of the ground lease documentation preparation, the stuff that happens behind the scenes is currently occurring right now. And that means really getting us closer to our next steps, which is going to be able to obtain the carrier approval terms. We're going to be able to execute our lease documentation and advance our zoning and permitting shortly, really next month and as we move towards the future. I'm going to pause there. I know I've shared a lot of information, but I'm going to pass this presentation over to my counterpart, Jason, who's going to review our replacement tower examples. We wanted to give you visuals for what you all can expect as these replacement towers take hold in the community and what kind of benefits those will bring to the community as well.
As Jason comes up,
Yeah.
are you going to run the other towers in staggered parallel, or will it all be in series?
Great question, Jason.
Yeah, so as Kyle mentioned, Ocean Course will be our first pass. And then we would like to submit the other three as quickly as we can. If we can do them in parallel, that would be ideal for us. But we'll just have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I know there'll be some staggering, but that would be great. Yeah, thank you.
And if I can just add to that, because they're talking to Crown Castle right now. The American Tower is sufficient height right now, and I believe they've confirmed they have the appropriate radios on that one. The resort continues to work the modernization around the sanctuary. The Vanderhorst Tower, we're in discussions with Berkeley on that right now. There's some things we need to work through with that one, but that's the final cap filler.
And the hope, and maybe even expectation, is that we'll truly have 5G all over the island?
Yes, that is the intent.
Good afternoon.
And soon to be 6G.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Could you move closer and speak in the mic? Councilmember Kay cannot hear you. Thank you.
Is this better?
Yeah, if you, yes, project.
Thank you. So once again, I just want to provide some examples of what you may be able to see. On the left of the screen, this is an existing 160-foot monopole, which is just up the street on Maybank Highway on Johns Island. And so you can see from this picture, there's some mature canopy around this 160-foot tower, which helps conceal it. Kiowa Island, you have some beautiful old growth canopy here on the island, right? And we as Crown Castle, we believe that the 150-foot towers that we are proposing at these sites will also be concealed by this canopy. On the right-hand side, I've got the split screen. The Ocean Course, which is 70 foot, is taller, it's on smaller, which is on the left-hand side. And what we're proposing, PhotoSim, is the 150 foot on the right-hand side. You can see the Ocean Course is a stealth site. So meaning the carriers, which we only have 2 currently, that's on the Ocean Course, and the equipment is internal to the tower, is restricted from a wireless perspective. Okay, they can't add so much capacity due to the limitations of the stealth design. On the right-hand side, what we're proposing, you can see 3 distinct mounts or carriers. So one major aspect between the 2, you go from Ocean Course, which only has 2 wireless carriers today, and what we're proposing tower will be able to support 3 wireless carriers, at least 3. In addition to that, the wireless carriers would not be restricted in terms of the amount of equipment that they add, so what does that mean? They can add more capacity. That means your phones will be faster than what they currently are today. In addition to the increased capacity, we're going from 70 foot to 150 foot, which is going to help from a coverage perspective. So kind of summarize the benefits of going from the existing 70 foot to the 150. One, you're going from 2 wireless carriers to 3. Secondly, they're going to have more capacity, so you're going to have the 5G, the faster speeds. Third, they're going to have better connectivity because they're going to have a bigger footprint to help cover the island. And this helps, it's going to give you a better probability that when you need to make that call, you're going to have connectivity for public safety. That's a big concern. I think many of the individuals on the island, they probably use their cell phone as their home phone, right? And, you know, it's important when you need to make that call, you want to have connectivity, and that taller tower will help provide that better connectivity.
Jason, can I jump in with just a couple things? Most people consider their cellular experience this, which is great, and we want it to work right. And the apps on these phones suck a lot more data in now, so you need a lot more capacity. But there's public safety. Beach Patrol, for example, has an online tool that they do reports on, and there are a lot of gaps on the island where they don't have sufficient coverage to do that. Same thing with EMS and St. John's Fire and others. So, you know, having those kinds of tools available. I believe Kika and maybe the resort even have, you know, tools in trucks and cars that they're working off of, and they have to find a place where they get a signal before they can do it. So it's disruptive as well, but it also impacts safety. And one more thought. Each of the carriers has an in-home, what they call fixed wireless product, which means you can use, instead of fiber or coax cable like with Comcast today, or AT&T if you have that, you can use your backhaul being the 5G cellular and it's broadband, and you can actually get your home internet off of a device over cellular.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's going to the taller tower will give you another fiber backhaul competitor, right? You can, I think you mentioned there was fiber on the island, but this will allow the fixed wireless, so you have a competitor for the backhaul. With that, I'm going to hand the slides over to Zaki. Zaki is going to go into more detail in terms of the current wireless coverage at Ocean Course on one of our carriers, and then also the proposed coverage at the 150 foot.
Good afternoon. This is Zaki Mohammed, part of Crown Castle RF engineering team. I'm here to present only just a couple of slides here. On the left side, you're seeing is the current footprint coverage map of one tower. The red highlighted color is basically where the signal strength is quite dominant, and all the residents or the outdoor coverage in those areas are going to receive a very good coverage, good quality of signal, therefore getting good throughput or speed. On the right is we have done a delta analysis between what we covered today versus what it's going to look like at a higher RAD center with the increase. So you can see that the coverage definitely have doubled up when you increase the height. So currently, if you are covering around 140 homes, with the increased height, ideally we will cover 220 homes. So that's the impact we want to see on the coverage. Definitely, this is the top RAD center, and as we look for the second and third carrier, the coverage is going to go a little shrinked up. So that's this slide about. Thank you.
I love it. And really, just to wrap up our presentation today, here's an executive summary. We kind of already walked through our completed, in progress, and next steps, and you'll see that Crown Castle remains committed to bringing connectivity to the island, and we really want to be collaborative partners with you all here today, and also want to be able to make sure the stakeholders and our carrier customers are able to not only be collaborative, but we really just want to make sure that connectivity remains strong. So if there are any questions, we'd love to take them at this time, and we really appreciate the opportunity to share with you all how Crown Castle can bring connectivity and stronger connections to your island. And if there aren't any questions, we'd be happy to, talk with you following the meeting. Or if there are any more pointed questions you come up with later, feel free to share them with your council members or the mayor, and we'd be happy to answer them in the future as well.
If I can just add two quick comments. First of all, thank you again, Roger, for yours and Plumman's help with this. Like I said, there's a lot of not glamorous stuff that happens early in this process, and the resort's been a great partner in helping make this work. The second thing is that now that we're going to start seeing measurable progress, the plan for now is to update monthly through the Infrastructure and Public Works Committee, and then as need be, bring it forward to Town Council as more major activities happening, as requested.
Absolutely. We remain committed to keeping the dialogue open and happy to answer any questions, and appreciate your partnership and all of the help that we've already had. It's been great coming down to the island, and we're really excited to bring stronger connectivity.
I do have one more comment.
Yes, Lance.
And I said this earlier, but this doesn't cost us anything except for helping them do it. The carriers in Crown Castle make the investment in this, so they see the value in doing this for Kiowa.
And that's a great point, Lance. And I would just note that those 3 other sites after Ocean Course are going to be carrier driven. So we remain committed to providing those solutions. Those carrier commitments have also been shared with us. And so we're really excited to not only complete Ocean Course, but then to see that domino effect for the rest of the community thereafter.
Thanks, Kyle.
So thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen. And again, I want to commend Councilmember Spencer's leadership on this issue from the get-go. Without his persistence and drive, none of this would have been possible. Thank you. Move on to updates. I will begin first with a couple of brief updates regarding Captain Sam Spit. As I suspect many people are aware, maybe not everyone, when we met last month, the issue with regard to the state's commitment to provide its the state legislatures authorization of funds to support the state's commitment towards the settlement had not yet occurred. It was still in Budget Committee, Conference Committee. That Conference Committee report was issued, and the $32 million that the state was obligated to provide into the settlement agreement was in the final conference report. It's still not been acted on by the legislature, but the conference report is scheduled to be considered by the state legislature a week from today. And it's an up and down vote. Full expectation is that that will pass, and then it will move to the governor, who is expected to sign that. That's really just the end of the first inning in many respects. Critical steps that had to take place, but we're a long way from kind of final execution of everything that's in the settlement agreement. There'll be more opportunity to talk about some of those steps that will have to take place, but some will involve town actions, particularly with regard to the Planning Commission and subdivision of the Captain Sam Spit parcel. So we'll continue to keep you apprised of developments in that regard. The second Sam Spit update is with regard to another matter we discussed last week, which was SAPOA's proposed or application to the U.S. Army Corps and to DES for a new inlet relocation. They put out a press release a week or two ago indicating that that permit application had been withdrawn. They characterized it as due primarily to timing considerations and questions regarding ownership of Captain Sam Spit, and that they would intend to resubmit that application at a subsequent date. I will simply reiterate, as I've said time and time again, we'll continue to say, those are necessary but not sufficient steps for there ever to be an inlet relocation. At the end of the day, there is no inlet relocation without the town's approval, and long before that happens, there will be an extensive public review process that the town will undertake. The next agenda item is with regard to a matter that came to our attention earlier last month. And it was related to a letter or memo that went out from the Architectural Review Board to builders and contractors, and it looks like about 300 or so entities on an email list. That memo raised significant concerns and was really kind of stunning in its inaccuracy and its overreach. the memo said, amongst other things, that the ARB has noticed an increasing trend of contractors undertaking work on properties without obtaining necessary approval, and to do so is illegal under binding covenants, that they would be subject to fines and further actions, and it even cites and miscites pretty substantially state law provision dealing with restrictive covenants. Had a follow-up meeting with a couple of representatives of the ARB. I think that was a generally constructive meeting. Where we left it was the hope that the ARB itself would undertake to send out a corrective memo or letter. That hasn't happened thus far. Some indication that there may be one forthcoming. If not, the town will put out something to correct the record. And the thing that we have to understand here is that the Architectural Review Board has review authority with regard to buildings, fences, and structures and the aesthetic aspects of those under the general covenants. No responsibility whatsoever for builders and contractors on the island. If there are issues with road contractors or builders, then, and they don't have a building permit, then the town should be advised. If they don't have an encroachment permit from the ARB, KICA should be advised. But when you combine this memo with what's in Designing with Nature, which itself does not have the force of law, that actually says on page 49 that violations of the standards may result in the suspension of a building permit and violators being prohibited from working on Kiowa Island. Beyond aesthetic considerations of building fences and structures, the Designing with Nature purports to regulate the conduct and appearance of builders and contractors and construction workers. Loud vehicles and speeding are not allowed on the island. Well, that's true, and we're certainly can enforce that, and KICA can, but ARB has no authority to enforce either KICA rules or regulations or town ordinances. Construction workers are not allowed to loiter around island businesses. I don't know if the ARB staff is around there trying to determine who's loitering or not. Construction workers are required to wear shirts and shoes. May be a good thing, but it's not for an architectural review body to be purporting to regulate the conduct of construction workers with which they have no contractual privity. It's got to stop. So I hope there will be corrective things. I hope some of these will be addressed in the revisions, which we hope will be forthcoming revisions to Designing with Nature. Oh, it also says that they can issue stop orders, stop work orders. Again, none of that's in the general covenants. It's got to stop.
Mr. Mayor, doesn't also mention something about they can grant variances?
Well, that's a completely set of issues, and maybe I'll touch upon that in the next ARB-related issues. But yes, it does say I think the words in Designing with Nature are that rules and guidelines on building setbacks, lot coverage, building height, and square footage are determined by the ARB, and the ARB determines in its sole discretion that a variance may be granted.
But that's factually not true also.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a nuanced issue. Obviously, all of those standards are embedded in the town's zoning code, and the Board of Zoning Appeals is the only body which can grant variances from the zoning ordinance and land development regulations. Yes, by private covenant, private parties can be more restrictive, and the ARB may choose to do so, but only more restrictive, and they only can grant some allowance from their more restrictive standards or guidelines. But the idea that somehow this private sector body is actually is a sole body to determine lot coverage, building height, square footage, and having sole discretion to establish variances is just wrong.
If I could just add a perspective that, I think one reason it's important to clarify communication and roles is queue is hard enough for construction companies. I mean, everybody's struggling with finding somebody that can build in a sufficient timeline or renovation or something like that. And there's the Kiowa premium to get out here and do all the things we want done. there's a lot of construction going on Johns Island, Edisto, all kinds of other places. It concerns me that this will be another nail in the coffin of it's too hard to build at Kiowa and to work at Kiowa. I'm going to take my crews somewhere else.
That somewhat relates to the second issue I want to touch upon regarding tangentially the ARB, but also the community association and the ongoing negotiations regarding finalizing an omnibus agreement between KICA and Kiowa partners regarding a wide range of matters, one of which is the transition of some architectural authority, whether it's all or not, from the developer ARB to KICA. I had a conversation, a good conversation with the KICA board chair a week ago Monday, catching up on a number of things, and appreciate that opportunity to engage. And she noted at that time that the board was prepared to send to the council a letter that requested the council to move forward with, I don't know, because we haven't seen the letter, disbanding the the town's design review board, or carving back its jurisdiction or reach with regard to perhaps properties that are subject to the general covenants or Kiowa covenants. I stated at the time, and by the way, that issue also just came up when we had our first meeting of our design review board on Wednesday. I wasn't there, but watched the meeting afterwards, and that same kind of issue came up. It wasn't clear to me what was driving the timing of this. But I think it's important to step back a little bit so people in the community more broadly understand or recall why it is that the town established its own design review board. And we did that back in now October of 2025. And it was born out of a view, and I think this was a consensus view, that there is a strong public interest in design of buildings in the town of Kiowa Island, particularly larger commercial multi-family projects, and that public interest wasn't particularly well satisfied in all instances by having the review only undertaken by a third-party private ARB that is not particularly transparent, and for which there is no real accountability, and is sometimes characterized by conflicts of interest. So the town went down the path to establish its own design review board. Mindful of the fact that what's not necessarily good for anybody is to have multiple layers of architectural review, and particularly in conflicting architectural review. The town included a proviso, a sense of the council at the time that we passed the DRB, that said, it's not exact, but this is were their terms, where it said if architectural control is transferred from the developer ARB to KICA on or before June 30th of 2026, then the council would revisit the DRB to consider an appropriate waiver or carve-out from the application or scope of the town's DRB to KICA-related properties. Well, obviously the conditions haven't been met yet. I mean, it's my understanding still as of today, there's been no execution, there's not been any finalization of the omnibus agreement that would affect transfer in whole or in part from the developer to KICA. But that's, I mean, we could still reconsider. The problem is we don't know what we don't know right now, as all we can rely on is the memorandum of understanding that was made public back in January, not having yet reviewed the omnibus agreement. Bottom line is there has been no transfer. We don't know exactly what that transfer entails. But it would be my commitment is to, when we actually understand what the parameters are, what the terms and conditions are associated with that, what the phasing is, that would be the time to sit down and take a fresh look at the scope of our DRB. Whether that's soon or many months down the road, not clear until we see it, but I would note that from the MOU, the MOU did not contemplate a full transition of architectural review authority from the developer to the KICA ARB, and would only happen over the course of several phases, and some of those did not have hard deadlines associated with that. The other challenge, and this came up a little bit in the context of the meeting with the DRB about the process of starting to establish town standards, is the DRB members were asking, well, don't we want to kind of try to line up with the standards for the ARB? The problem there is in 70-some pages of Designing with Nature, on page 29, there's 2 sentences that pertain to commercial and multifamily buildings. That's it. It just says that the design philosophy formulated with these standards guidelines shall be implied from single family with similar intent to these project types, but that's it. Now, at the DRB meeting, Amanda Mole from the ARB did indicate she was going to start working on new standards for commercial multifamily, but those haven't happened yet, so we haven't seen that. So to be continued, but my view was, what I conveyed was, you can send a letter to us, but it'd be premature for us to consider until we have a lot more information. And then even then, there are going to have to be discussions about what exactly is carved out, if at all. Is it all commercial multifamily behind the gate? It can't be, well, at least in my opinion, my fellow council members may disagree, all property subject to the KICA covenants or the general covenants, because that would include properties outside the main gate that encroach upon public rights-of-way along Beachwalker Drive, whether that's Ocean Pines, Upper Beachwalker, the gas station, KIRE building, etc. Even more ironically, it would purport to give, since the town is bound to submit for ARB review for certain types of projects on KIP and Beachwalker Drive going all the way out to the roundabout, would somehow give KICA review authority over stuff that goes all the way out towards Freshfields Village, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And then we've just got to kind of work through Designing with Nature, these provisions that have, conflict with town ordinances, and there are many, many others. The problem there is, at least based on the MOU, the KICA board has now onboarded, they've adopted Designing with Nature and actually recorded those. So now their provisions start conflicting with the towns. And while they've said they would change those, the MOU at least, I don't know about the omnibus agreement, provides that no changes can be made to this without the developer ARB's approval prior to the end of phase 4. Again, that's all based on the MOU. We'll just have to see. So I don't know if my fellow council members have different perspectives on either of those issues.
Well, the only thing that, well, maybe not the only thing, but the main thing that I have in talking to you and in talking to others is meeting the deadline is passed for us to maybe pull back. Now, for me, for us to pull back any further, it's not just meeting the deadlines that would be extended, but also see how the execution works. So I'm not of a mind to pull back just because a new letter's been signed. I want to see how their ARB works, and are they doing the things and being transparent? Are they following up? Are they making sure the designs are there? Are there established procedures in place and requirements? So it's more than just, okay, we've stood this up now. It's really the execution of how that works going forward. And is it working well?
I share both of your concerns and views. Short of the MOU in January, I believe it was, which was supposed to be done in 60 days, and I was skeptical of that because it takes a long time to do that stuff. It's ambitious, but it does take time to do that stuff. And it's no fault. It was aggressive. I've had no visibility into anything else. So for us to roll back or carve out anything, like you both have said, is very premature in my mind. I have a lot of questions, and like you said, Councilmember Farrell, it needs to be up and operating and prove itself for, I think, the town to consider. Because right now, we deliberately established a backstop that was to be put in place until all this could get resolved, and to make sure we're looking out for the best interests of the community in the meantime. And we're going through work which requires effort and expense and lots of things to stand up and actualize our DRB at the same time. Turning something off is easy. Turning something on and rebuilding it or building it is hard. So I don't want to waste that effort we've had in building that backstop until we've really seen it prove itself, because it could change as a matter of resolution at the next KICA board meeting if we're not careful. So I would need some kind of confidence that's in place. I've got a whole list of concerns in my head that I would love to hear from KICA more on when they're ready to share this as to how this is going to be and how it's progressing and how it's operating. One of my questions was authority and enforcement, like you mentioned, Mayor Bell. I may be misconnecting something, but I don't believe that covenant change passed in the KICA vote for KICA to be able to enforce fines and penalties. So I don't know what their enforcement mechanism is, just as a starting point. It may just be hollow paper and, great, we had a meeting, but we can't do anything about it. So those are the kinds of questions I've got of how are you going to enforce it? Just basic things.
The other thing that comes to mind for me is, if I recall correctly, I saw the original MOU back in January, and it talked about transferring from the current ARB to KICA individual home sites, single-family dwellings. And this was supposed to be the last phase, the commercial and multifamily, 3 or 4 years down the road, which frustrated me that it was taking that long to transfer all of it. But okay, and now it's reversed, and they're doing commercial and single-family commercial and multifamily first. And the timing just perplexes me. Why not do the sort of easy, important stuff to the community first, which is a single family, and you can onboard that and get some experience. So this timing about the change and the kind of complete reversal of the MOU, if I recall correctly.
It actually was, commercial multifamily was in phase 1, single family in phase 2. There were 2 additional phases in the MOU. But interestingly enough, and again, the MOU is just the MOU. It's not the omnibus. It would transition upon effectiveness review authority for new multifamily or commercial, but the current ARB would reserve the authority to review any matter that was pending before it or had been brought before it, not really defined and not clear that would ever be transitioned.
That was the other issue.
And then it wasn't until phase 3 that authority over, again, which has no time frame associated with it, it has a no less than, but doesn't mean when it would actually occur, that the developer ARB would continue to retain authority over multifamily improvement applications, which I guess could include Ocean Pines or West End or other things like that. So you would not have KICA review authority with them. So those are the kinds of, I think, details that we need to better understand and flesh out going forward. So where we stand right now.
Can I add one more comment, please? I don't understand fundamentally what the rush is and what the urgency is. I mean, we all commented about we'll review it at the right times no matter what. We put in the comment at a recommendation to put a true trigger in there to look at it. Nothing's changed. The facts as we know it haven't changed. But I don't understand what's driving the urgency for us to roll ours back. I'd love to understand that. And we're all KICA members too. So we're subject to all this too. And as I believe you all would echo, let's take the time to get this right. Let's be deliberate. Use the DRB as a positive thing and as a good backstop to give the breathing room to do it right.
Well, and so where we are today is our DRB has been stood up. It had an initial kind of organizational meeting in the process of developing standards that go beyond the 5 or 6 areas of standards specified in the ordinance. The one thing, so there is a legitimate concern on the part, whether it's the resort or anybody else, that's either improvements to multifamily or commercial or new additions there, to kind of understand what the rules of the road are and to avoid unnecessary duplication of effort. And I would hope that we get to that point where we can do that. So there's just a fair amount of spade work. The one thing I would observe is that by its terms, the scope of our DRB, regardless of what it applies to, its scope of review is much more limited than that asserted by the ARB in designing with nature. Like boardwalks. An issue came up at the DRB meeting the other day about 3 levels of regulation of boardwalks. Our DRB would not be reviewing boardwalks. It's simply not covered in the scope of the DRB's existing authority. Yard art, landscape maintenance, maintenance and repair, kind of go on and on and on. 20 pages of the designing with nature stuff that I would argue goes well beyond the general covenants. The RB seeks to, our DRB would not. So it would be a much more limited scope review.
One thing that I was thinking as you were saying that is that, this whole thing that is in motion right now, I don't think it's really been tested yet with an application coming into any of the entities. I hope if somebody is submitting an application and going through the process, that communication continues. Professional and courteous, please.
Guess what? The town is going to be the first one subject to it.
Well, there you go.
But with
let us know how that goes, because we can adjust if we know.
So kind of shifting gears, I was going to provide an update on the Civic and Cultural Center, and particularly an update on discussions last month regarding our wastewater management solutions, but I'll hold those, reserve those until we get to the discussion a little bit later in the agenda. Just to note for the record, we had talked about at the last council meeting potentially having on the agenda for this meeting a special events permit or public gatherings ordinance. We're still working on that. It's really trying to calibrate what's the appropriate scope. When is there public interest in a public gathering? We reviewed our records and we had special permits for something like 50 weddings. Is there real public interest? If they're pyrotechnics or, if there's, erecting structures or loud amplified music, maybe. But, if it's an indoor wedding, I don't care how many people it is, and if it's on private property, I'm not sure that there's a public interest. So we're trying to refine those issues, and we'll hopefully come back in September. We've got to continue to work on that. The last update that I will note is actually the most momentous development in this past month. Put all this other stuff aside, and that was the bittersweet announcement that came out of the Kiawah Island Golf Resort 2 weeks ago regarding the well-deserved and well-earned pending retirement after almost a quarter century of Mr. Roger Warren. I note there's a quote from Bill Goodwin, in the chairman of the Kiawah Island Golf Resort, that Roger's leadership, vision, and dedication have left an indelible mark on Kiawah Island Golf Resort. I think that's way too short shrift. It's obviously an indelible mark on Kiawah Island as a whole. It does note that the resort and Mr. Warren intend to explore opportunities for his advisory support regarding select development projects and transition-related matters, and hope that will actually come to pass. I will reserve any further comment this time, because I would hope that we would have further opportunities at town to acknowledge Mr. Warren's contributions to the island at a future date. That's my update. Council Member Durrell.
Just giving the inch of time, I'm just going to mention.
I don't know if Councilmember Kay, is she going to hold?
I don't know if you can even hear me.
We can.
Go ahead, Ms. Kay.
Okay, so I just want to back up to the whole ARB thing for just my comment, and that is, I also think we need to keep that backstop in place, since the developers ARB has not always been as quick to move forward on transferring responsibilities as perhaps we would like. So I think it's absolutely prudent that we keep this our backstop in place. Secondly, as far as Roger is concerned, I think it's incalculable, his contribution to Kiowa. And he has, not everybody is always in agreement, but he has been judicious and candid and thoughtful and respectful, and it's always been a pleasure dealing with him. And I don't know how somebody like that is going to be replaced. So thank you, Roger. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the appointment, the hiring of Lucas Hernandez as the town's new resiliency director. This is a project that Stephanie and I, with some assistance from other council people and staff, have been working on for about a year. I think that the formation of a resiliency committee has helped to move some resiliency projects forward, but with the scope of resiliency issues that the town is addressing, it really required somebody with a tremendous amount of background and expertise and knowledge to be able to marshal all of the resources that will be necessary to fight some of the issues with climate change, sea level rise, and stormwater issues. Lucas is immensely qualified, and we had some very, very strong candidates apply for this position. But Lucas has been involved with Kiowa resiliency and environmental issues for the last 10 years. He has multi-degreed. He was instrumental in the 2017 sea level rise drafting. And in order to put somebody's hands around what needs to be done to work with all of the various stakeholders here and to look for funding, again, that was outside my level of expertise, totally outside. And so I think that we are all trusting Lucas to take Kiowa to its place of prominence, where it belongs along the East Coast, in terms of being a leader in resiliency issues. So I am absolutely delighted with his hiring. I thank Brad for his support in this initiative, and am really, really looking forward to having him on board mid-September.
Thank you, Councilmember Kay, and I'm sorry that you're under the weather, and thank you for offering those comments notwithstanding, plus on vacation overseas. No, I guess you're up north by now. Just to echo what Councilmember Kay said about bringing on Lucas Hernandez. I mean, he's been well known to this community. I think he's going to be a tremendous asset. We've also gotten less attention, but we've given some expanded responsibilities to one of our key staff members, Michael Nardelli, to be just operations and risk manager. And part of that expanded responsibility will be working particularly with Lucas on doing a comprehensive island-wide risk assessment, particularly focused things on failure points, vulnerabilities like the causeway, like the bridge. And some of our utilities infrastructure, et cetera. So we expect great things out of them, and reporting back to the council and things that we will need to consider how to make the island, the community more resilient. How do we extend the lifespan of some of these assets, et cetera? When, at what point do we need to raise the Mingo curve, and so on and so forth. So to be continued on that, and all due to Councilmember Kay's leadership on this particular matter. Really much appreciate that. So now, Councilmember Farrell.
Yeah, so just one thing, and where's Mr. Holohan? I'm sorry you weren't here at the last meeting, Larry. We had the portfolio manager from the state talk about our investment portfolio. And so there's actually been some outreach, wanted copies of it. Are we going to post it or send it out individually, Dorada? Okay, so you have it. So, but that's available to anybody who would like to see it, you know, the audit report or the performance report from our investment portfolio that the state manages for us. And so we're very pleased. We had deep discussion on what it invests in, what are the guidelines, what are their options for the future for developing new funds, and then some talk about investment outlook as well as securities that they hold. So it was something near and dear to, I know, Larry's heart and my heart. So if you want copies of that, it's available from Dorada if you'd reach out to her.
Any further updates? Councilmember Spencer?
Just a few. And to answer your questions, Walhan, we'll talk about the conservation fund in a few minutes, and I'll try to answer your questions when we talk through that. We've considered a lot of what you brought up, but we'll articulate that better. I think we've covered most of what I already had as notes. One thing I've observed, though, that maybe we'll see some more data on, it seems like the island's gotten used a lot harder this season. We're out a lot. I probably walk 6 to 8 miles a day on the beach, on the trails, and other places. The amount of trash we're finding is just more than I've ever seen. I mean, significantly more. The amount of people fishing and crabbing and, taking advantage of the natural landscape, but, I mean, it's almost an order of magnitude more people I see on the bridges and at the Pond 1 fishing and stuff like that, and on the beach. I don't know if that's a trend, but it's enough that it's really noticeable. So I only say that in the context that a lot of us are working a lot of different spinning plates about how do we address the use of the island and the I'm trying to think the right word, the things we need to do to preserve the island and make sure it's usable, but also, anyway, I'm losing the word, but we ought to be thinking about that as we're looking at future policies and actions.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to recognize, we're talking about employees. We have 2 employees that will be celebrating anniversaries this month. We have Aaron Gibbons, who will be celebrating 18 years with the town. He is the town's assistant biologist, and John Taylor, our planning and zoning director, will be celebrating 10 years this month with the town. So I'd like to recognize them and thank them for their service. Also, as a reminder, we have Food Truck Friday this Friday. We have it through the end of this month. Because of the success, we did extend it. Originally, it was just going to go through, I believe, July, so we did push it out for an additional month. And also, as a reminder, the Kiowa Arts, which is our arts council, they kick off their season this month. Their first event is August 14th, the Marsh Grass Mamas. So for more information on their season, please go to our website where the information is posted. And if you see anything you like, please sign up for tickets. And with that, that's all I have.
Thank you. We have no old business to consider. Moving on to new business. The first agenda item is an update on the progress of the Civic and Cultural Center and to consider approval of a recommendation from our ad hoc building committee to council to approve essentially an early release package for structural steel. We have with us our architect of record, Steve Coe, as well as Josh Spencer from Edifice, our construction manager. They've been working hand in glove, at least it appears to be the case, in frequent meetings and provided us regular updates. We are fairly well evolved in the conceptual phase of the site plan and the buildings, and we're essentially at this stage locking ourselves into the footprint. But still to be resolved are issues related to fit and finish and other issues associated with that. But I'm certainly pleased with the work they've done and how it's evolved. I hope the community as well will get to see a little of that, and they'll be able to explain why it is that it's incumbent upon us, both from a timing standpoint, cost standpoint, to go ahead and take this action today to do the early release package. Mr. Coe and Mr. Spencer.
In all seriousness, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Really, as the mayor said, there are really 3 main purposes, I think, for today. One is obviously to update you on the design progress. As the mayor said, we have been having bi-weekly meetings with the town, but also weekly meetings with Josh's group and my extended design team. The purpose of those meetings has been to advance the design, but also to
ensure that we are maintaining control on costs and schedule. Josh's group has been taking the drawings as we've been developing them and doing an analysis on various construction assemblies, materials, et cetera. And in addition to looking at those from costs, but also performance, not only maintenance performance, but acoustic performance in the performance hall itself, and those types of things. The second reason, as the mayor said, is a justification today for an early site and early steel package. We'll discuss that as it relates to long lead items, cost impacts, specifically on materials, but also those related impacts on schedule and have an end result on increased costs. And lastly, we are, as the mayor said, working towards a submittal to the DRB, and so I think it's just an appropriate time for us to present today. So the site plan has remained relatively the same from when you last saw it, which is an addition to the existing building that includes a lobby expansion, a community room addition, and then the performance space itself. From a site plan perspective, it is improvements to overall parking and circulation on the site with an addition of, we're showing at this point, 45 additional parking spaces, an analysis of, from a zoning perspective or from a performance perspective, with a 300-seat auditorium, we would need at a minimum 100 spaces, and the additional 20 or so spaces that we then would have overall on the site would be for back of house maintenance and staff usage during an event. The site plan itself also includes, as the mayor mentioned, we're looking at how we connect to utilities, and so there is a septic field associated with the overall site plan that then is configured in overall with parking.
Could I ask you to press pause just on that issue?
Sure.
Because that is an update from our last council meeting. So the site plan still contemplates septic rather than connection to Seabrook Island Utility. It's the discussions, I would like to say discussions are continuing, but that would not actually be correct. And it's unfortunate. So when we met a month ago, indicated at that time they were sending a new letter to Seabrook Island Utility reiterating our desire to connect to public sewer and do so in terms that were consistent with what had been previously shared back in February. There was a week after we sent that letter, a call came from council to Seabrook Island Utility, to the town's outside council, separate council on this matter, saying those terms were generally acceptable, but there was no actual written response, and there was no letter of intent to serve provided at that point in time. We had asked for contacts with, to be connected with Seabrook Island Utilities engineers. That has not yet happened. There are engineers. We got the contact information for the manager for Seabrook Island Utility System, which we already had, on the 11th, which is no, the 21st, I believe a letter went from our engineer to the manager requesting an urgent meeting and beginning to share documents, technical specifications, et cetera. To date, that has not been responded to, that email. Our Director of Public Works last Friday sent another email following up on the engineer's email regarding a number of issues, and that has not yet been responded to. So at this juncture, we're kind of thrown up our hands. We've just simply gotten no forward momentum whatsoever from Seabrook Island Utility. I want to contrast that, by the way, with regard to the town of Seabrook Island and the council. one of the conditions was to modify their ordinance, just as we had done, to not avoid the necessity of a referendum. A week ago, the Seabrook Island Council actually took that action. And the mayor and the council members still appear to be supportive of providing the public sewer connection. But even though they wholly own the utility, they can't dictate what the utility does under state law or their ordinances. So we are where we are. It's unfortunate because now where we could have parking or other uses, we have a septic field. We still have to have the septic field in back. There may be an opportunity in the future to connect to sewer still, and we'll still pursue that. And we can retrofit, and there's a plan for doing that, but that would entail some additional cost and time at that, which is just extraordinarily frustrating and unfortunate. Apologies for that interruption, Mr. Coe.
Ultimately, that's the most environmentally friendly solution.
I'm sorry.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor, but for those that are less informed in the audience about this project, could you maybe point out where the new building is versus?
I'm trying to get a pointer so I can do that.
I think
Kyle?
people are anxious to hear.
Sure, I appreciate that. Without having a pointer, I mean, I guess the best I can do is sort of walk you through from the bottom of the sheet. That's the main entry drive as you come in, and we will be constructing a new parking area. I mentioned the septic field, that's to the left of that. Excellent, got it. Okay. Got it. So this is the existing drive. The existing building is here. Existing entry to the building here and existing lobby. The addition is off the back of the building, and it will extend the lobby, but there will also be a separate entrance, sort of a secondary entrance. So the main entry will still be used on day-to-day office and day-to-day business for town hall. This entry into the building will be used for performance events and special events in the new addition itself.
And I would just note in that regard, none of that has really changed from the very beginning of
Correct.
the conceptual design process and the 3 designs we had been submitted.
Correct. So additional parking, a drop-off space for the performance entry, maintaining your existing parking, but also adding parking in the large grassy area in front of existing town hall that's sort of unused right now, and it's just a grassed area. We will be capturing parking in that, parking along the backside here, edge as you come around the turn to the rear area, improving pedestrian pathways. So if you park or are in the back, there is a pedestrian walk that connects to the front, pedestrian walkways around the parking here, and pedestrian paths along this parking. The other portion of this that has changed a bit, but was sort of always being discussed, was overall connectivity of this site to whether it be a walking trail or other sort of amenities on the site, potential future amenities that we are coordinating with the town on and planning for, not specifically incorporating into this construction project, but making sure that where those new amenities might be located, we're planning for connection for them. So hopefully we're not building into a corner where you can't take advantage of those in the future.
And just on that, Steve, beyond this particular project, that we are in the process of engaging, may have already happened, a kind of master landscape or campus plan to create a more like park-like setting, usability for this entire campus with a trail system around here, particularly embracing the marsh and the live oaks back over this way, pollinator gardens, the ponds, et cetera. And I would also, just off-site, what we have off this image is the intention is to have a roll curb over here. We're carving back some of the overgrowth that's occurred over the last 3 or 4 years to create a lot of additional grass overflow parking that could also be used for additional outdoor events in the future.
Correct, thank you. I think the only thing I didn't discussed was the area here behind the new addition, sort of an informal garden courtyard area that, as the mayor said, whether that's on Food Truck Fridays or really just to try and attract folks to this site and create amenities. That's this courtyard behind the building, which I'll show you as we move along. We have been, I'm just going to do
Well,
this
you're
one.
looking, one thing you will note is we also are moving ADA spaces much closer to the front entrance. They've been way back over here, which has never really been acceptable.
I got it. It's fine.
Acceptable.
I got it.
So it'll be much closer to the entrance going forward.
Correct. That's, well, now this one's not working. Oh, wrong. There you go. That's ADA parking here, directly adjacent to the entry. We are also have been working with arborists to categorize and existing trees, determine those which are diseased and or not in the best of shape versus those which should be maintained, and trying to be very selective on what we remove and what we keep. There's mature trees that we'd like to keep, not only for their appearance but also for shade and amenity on the site. And so we have met routinely with them as we're working through the site plan. Here's a larger view of the overall floor plan. So there's the drop-off from the parking area, the entry, the new lobby, community room, outdoor courtyard, performance hall. As part of the increase in occupants for the performance space, there is an expansion to existing restroom facilities to increase fixtures for those events. And then, as I mentioned, the lobby space, which expands on the existing lobby and creates somewhat of a pre-function area for potential performance spaces. The design of the building is such that the floor does slope, and so we're using the lowest point of the floor to determine that we are above flood, as far as we mentioned earlier, some resiliency issues, but also to be sure that if a piano needs to get either on stage or in the pre-function area in the lobby, they don't have to traverse any stairs or ramps. So the lobby is somewhat split into a higher 1-foot step to get into the performance level versus the existing lobby and this other half of the new lobby, which are all on level with the area we're on here. So if you were to come into either council chambers or the community room or the lobby or the bathrooms, that's all on level. If you come into the new lobby, there's a set of stairs and a ramp here that gets you up to this additional height and then gets you into the level of the performance space. Back of house areas include dressing rooms, green room, some of the mechanical and support spaces that are needed, a loading dock area, as I mentioned, the piano storage, and then the wing spaces for the performance space. Tricky to remember, I have to do both. Enlarged plan, I mentioned before, we are currently at 300 seats, which was the initial request from the town. And it does have a sloped floor, and I'll be showing you images, renderings of this space here in just a minute. Second floor area, which really is the control room and some of the other support spaces for the performance hall. A large plan of the lobby. This area in gray here is the existing lobby, so as you come across into the new lobby, the expanded bathrooms, as you know, right now you sort of come down a corridor and you turn to get into this corridor. What we're doing is capturing that space, so when you come through the lobby, it'll be a straight shot into the corridor that feeds into council chambers. The bathrooms will then be expanded, a set of stairs and ramp around a relocated entry desk that now has visual control over this entry, the existing entry, and the entry or exit that goes out into the courtyard space. A community room and chair storage, small kitchenette. Exterior elevations, so the top elevation is the view from the new parking area. This gable end is the end of the building here. One of the things we're trying to do is even with today, with the shades closed, there's a good bit of sun. I know that's been certainly on times when we've presented in that space. When the sun's setting, it gets quite bright in that room, and so we're screening the end of the building, but also adding this scrim element that allows us to sort of transition from the parking area into the new entry. This is sort of an adaptation of the existing elements on the building, the brown wood slats at both front and rear entries of the building. We're sort of taking that into, again, revising that and updating that into a bit more of a nicer element for us. They're trying to make that more like a furniture piece, but it's a screen that separates parking from walking in and entering the space. This view is looking from the rear. The end of the performance hall has a large window. Again, in the renderings, you'll see that here in a second. That was one of the requests of the town from the outset of the competition phase, was to have a connection to nature. So when you're in that space, you're enjoying the fact that you're right next to this wonderful landscaped area and overlooking the marsh and the forest. We're maintaining that. This is the community room and community garden area from that view. Oops, sorry. The entrance from the parking area, the drop-off, this will be ADA, it's showing as a curb, but that will be ADA accessible. You enter through this portal of such into the entrance doors, which are behind here. This is the end of the community room and the community garden. Closer view of that. So there's an entry sequence that's from your car into the lobby, into the performance hall. The rear garden courtyard area that will have opportunities for contemplation. You know, if you want to come and eat your lunch there, enjoy Food Truck Friday. Not a formal, regimented formal garden area, but more of a loose garden. Reviews of that. We've been trying very hard to take into consideration the nature that you've got here, whether it's back where you can sit and overlook the marsh, or what does the building look like through the trees. I've been struck always by sort of this pattern of live oak and how can that help to inform us. And one of the things in the performance space from an acoustics or acoustician's perspective, it's really important to have a world-class performance hall. A space that is representative of, I think, the prestige that comes with Keough in and of itself. And so there's a real science behind that. And one of those issues is that the walls of the performance space are somewhat tunable because it depends on the type of performance you have. Whether you have pure acoustics or you have electrified sound, whether it's speech or dance, we want to be able to tune the room. Most of these performance halls that you go in have that ability, and we're working with them on how that works. And typically what happens closer to the stage, the walls have a solid to void percentage of about 30% solid to 70% void, and then as you move back to the back of house, that changes. We're taking influence from a live oak tree, and that space, initially, as you see, we had somewhat of a repetitive pattern on the walls. That creates a problem acoustically, sort of known as a picket fence approach, and you get sound waves that conflict with each other, and so we want that to be a random space. These are just some sketches of how that's evolved. These are examples of what I'm talking about, how the walls really want to be random. We don't want a regular spaced pattern. These are not projects my firm has done, but our acoustician, our partner firm, has worked on many of these types of facilities across the country, and you see there's a lot of randomness in the wall systems or even in the way that they treat a curtain pocket on the sides of the room with a random wood grillage type of treatment. So taking that idea of solid to void and looking at that pattern, we're trying to find a way that we can do this economically. So these are sheets of plywood that we would have zero waste. So as you cut something off of that piece of plywood to create that opening in the wall surface, it can then be applied back on to give that pattern, and it's really important from an acoustic perspective that you have that. Those panels would then be assembled on the walls going from the right to the left, which is towards the stage, a higher percentage of void, to the back of house to a higher percentage of solid. And so the current updated view of the performance space itself looks like this, with those wall panels and what we're calling wings, acoustic baffles up at the ceiling that help direct sound from the stage back to the audience. I'll back up. You still see the large window in the back, and that will be able to be screened if there's a movie night or some type of other event where we need to have blackout shades. We'll have that ability to do that, both on the back window and the clerestory windows above. Primarily fixed seating, as I mentioned before. There are some movable chairs on the sides that get us to the total of 300 seat capacity. The next few views are interior views, this coming from the existing lobby into the new lobby. The area where the floor pattern changes goes from existing to new. Right now there's an exterior wall there. That wall will be removed with new structure to hold up the new building, obviously. But you see this is the relocated entry desk. You're looking out towards the garden courtyard. This entry door goes into the community room. And as we walk through here and you start looking towards the right, you'll see this hallway coming down towards council chambers. The screen wall is actually in front of the bathrooms, which are here to the right of this corridor. That's the existing corridor here behind me. Community room, entry desk. This is the ramp that goes up, and then the set of stairs, which is behind in this view. You really don't see it. The other thing we're trying to do, we know certainly the Arts Council has a presence, and we want to make sure that we provide spaces for art and display in the lobby and really let it be an amenity for the town. And sort of this reinterpretation of the screening that you have on the existing building, doing that in a little bit of a different way so that you start catching glimpses of that here in the lobby, but then when you get into the performance space, it actually opens up even more and becomes that solid devoid that I was talking about earlier. And with that, do you want to go over schedules a little bit? Okay. Sure. Josh Spencer with Edifice Construction.
Thank you all. Good afternoon. Nice presentation, Steve. Yep. So as part of our duty as construction manager, one of our first things to identify kind of early on in this design process, any long lead structural items or mechanical items, electrical components. And in today's climate, structural steel is coming at a bit of a long lead time as far as the date of order to the date it's on site. So as we've been evolving this design over the past few months, we have settled upon what the floor plan of the building looks like and the conceptual amount of structural steel needed to construct the space. Today's world, in a building of this size, structural steel lead times can vary from 32 to 44 weeks. In discussion with our steel mills and our steel subcontractors, we anticipate the tonnage needed for this building is around 36 weeks from the date we place the order to the date that steel is on site. Our team's always had a want and desire to break ground as soon as possible to start our foundation work, our site work, and get concrete in the ground. The current intent in discussions with our team here is to mobilize to site in February of 2027, which, working backwards, means that we need to release steel to the steel mill and to our subcontractors by November at the latest. The good thing about this process, Edifice is serving as the town's construction manager, and that allows us a bit of flexibility to release packages ahead of having the final contract value determined. So part of today's conceptual approval is to make sure that we have approval to move forward in both design and constructional procurement for this early site package. And what that would mean from Steve is, on the design side, an expedited approach to the foundation and steel, which would allow us in turn to order that steel, have it locked in for a June 2027 delivery. From the town's perspective, we are not on the hook for the total cost of that steel from day one, that release in fall. It would be just like any other construction procurement. The bill would be due upon receipt to the site. So I think today's discussion is conceptual approval of this plan, in which enables us to start construction and mobilize in February of 2027.
I've just got a question. Where are you sourcing the steel from? Just curiosity.
Well, so with that package, with that early steel package, we will solicit to 3 to 6 structural steel subcontractors. Depending on which subcontractor we land on, would determine which mill that came from. Most likely a Nucor mill within the state. Joist and deck can be sourced from all over the country, but it would really be relying on that subcontractor that's the lowest responsible bidder's preference.
Okay, thanks.
I'll back up a little bit. A traditional sort of delivery would be that we would design the building in totality, submit it for building permit, have it reviewed, get it approved, and then release the entire building package to the contractor to start work. That would, overall for our schedule, that would mean likely February of 27. The issue is that in doing that, and then looking at the lead time on steel, which when we started this project was not 30 to 40 weeks. The impact of that has been, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is the majority of the impact on that is because of data center construction across the country has taken up steel mills all over the country. But recognizing that, and then also after doing analysis on the building systems, trying to limit the amount of steel, which we are, and there are some pros and cons to that, but the pros are by using concrete block in the auditorium space, it has real advantages from an acoustics perspective. We reduce the amount of steel. We are able to then, hopefully, not being at the 40-week lead time on steel, less than that, but then also by releasing steel in October, November, we don't start construction, finish foundations, and then sit and wait 2 or 3 months for steel to show up on site with nothing happening. We're able to get a jump on the project by starting foundations earlier, so hopefully align that as soon as foundations are done, the steel is on site, we're ready to rock and roll with erection of steel without any delay, or extending the construction duration, which, as you know, when you extend a construction duration, more overhead, more costs. So we're trying to reduce that construction duration overall.
I mean, overall, or did you want to add something?
Well, I guess just to add, the overall procurement method right now would be, we refer to it as a component GMP. So component 1, GMP number 1, would be that early site steel concrete, gets its release. Component 2 would be the remaining of the scope, the finishes, the interior details, landscaping, et cetera. That would most likely be first of the year, first of 2027. Those 2 GMP packages together would equal the total contract value. That's in theory how we're contemplating it right now.
I guess from my perspective, we're not really coming into this cold. There's been, thankfully, some good discussions along the way on this. I feel like we've got about as best solution as we can for the footprint of the building, pending the other things that are going on. Your descriptions help the Gantt chart in my head understand why you need to do this. So I think it makes sense to me.
It's been a lot of back and forth and give and take. Those guys talk regularly, and then they engage with us. We did have a meeting of the ad hoc committee last week, unanimously recommended moving forward on this basis. That's comprised of myself, Councilmember Berner, who's not with us today, Rob Glass, and Mark Kamens, and David Wool, Chair of the Arts Council. And the level of communication has been extraordinary, and we're greatly appreciative of that. And it's interesting, the basic footprint hasn't changed that much. kind of from the get-go, minor alterations here and there. It was a considered decision to add about 1,000 square feet into the project, which is mostly lobby space, to increase kind of the overall aesthetics and flow. But that's been the kind of the major, the only really significant design element. We were between 250 and 300 seats, a lot of pressure to keep it at the high end, so we did that. Where the discussion has really been primarily is now, at this point in time, all in this fit and finishes, whether exterior materials, interior materials, et cetera, and still some cost trade-offs and elements about that, and they've been very good about offering the committee alternatives. And, you know, we've accepted some cost reduction recommendations. Others, we've simply said, no, we're not willing to make that kind of concession. And I think, Mr. Permar, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but something like, I mean, aim high, or, you know, build for the future, or don't be penny wise and pound foolish here. And so we've been kind of mindful of that to make sure that this is truly especially from an acoustic standpoint, a world-class facility that we can attract some of the best and the brightest that go to Gilliard for one night, and maybe they'll be willing to come here for a second night.
And that cost analysis process does not stop with this decision today. In fact, it just keeps moving forward, but part of that includes things like there's a very large AV and IT package associated with the sound system and the equipment in the performance space, and we're looking at ways of how can we perhaps have an initial phase of that gets you everything that you need. Certainly works quite well, but it's not the Taj Mahal of spaces, or it might not have all of the aspects to it, but it has the future for plug and play for those aspects, and looking at ways that we can save some money, not just in that, but even in exterior wall materials, finishes, those types of things. So that process continues.
Councilmember Farrell?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
You know, get a little bit out of order. We do have citizen comments after new business, but I would invite, if there's anybody that has any comments or questions from our team while they're here now, certainly please take this opportunity if you have. Yes, Larry.
What is the estimated cost, and when was that estimated? Because costs have increased significantly over the last year, like 20% steel or whatever.
So we are, I mean, that is still in the evolutionary stage. We do have preliminary numbers. There's some that are going to go up and some that are going to come down.
And the answer to the question is really there isn't one cost. It's we have been assessing costs all along at each phase. And there are, one of the ways that we do that to anticipate cost increases, because the price of an auditorium chair today is not going to be the same as it is in 8 months when you need that chair. So there are escalation and contingencies in the estimate. As we then make decisions on, in fact, we are getting chair samples for the town to review various types and aspects of different chairs. As we start nailing down those specific decisions, the costs become more clear, the contingency percentages come down because we don't have as much unknowns. So there will be continual cost estimating throughout the whole process.
I understand that. We actually work with Eclipse on 2 projects currently, and their financial tracking is very good.
Yep.
I have to say that. I read in the Post and Courier, maybe totally incorrect, it was 12 million.
So, and I'll address that, Larry. That was kind of the conceptual, without, you know, a firm understanding of what's involved early on as to what the cost of the project would be. It's certainly going to be higher than that, but I actually think not dramatically so. I believe where we are right now in the last round of conversations is right around 13 million or so for hard construction costs plus contingencies. And then we have design fees on top of that, but some of that was considered decisions. For example, to expand the square footage from where we originally planned by 1,000 square feet. So we're trying to, they're trying to develop it against budget, and in some cases we're saying, okay.
I agree totally with Mark's principle, if you've got to do it now, get it right. But the only concern is that the 12 million becomes 15. I mean, we've had problems with subcontractors walking away. I mean, it's
Well, Larry, at some point, part of this, we're doing it in 2 phases. I mean, Josh is going to be on the hook, and Edifice is going to be on the hook at some point in time, because we will negotiate a guaranteed maximum price for construction here in a couple of months. So, and that's what we're trying to refine. Because he's going to be on the hook.
Well, and I will just add, Mr. Mayor, that part of this CEMAT risk process does allow us to engage subcontractors at a very early stage. And part of your point, part of our contemplation with this early steel package is a tool to mitigate the escalation of steel. We can lock it in right now, and so those are being taken into consideration right now. No, absolutely.
Roger?
Is the escalation percentage per month right now in construction in this area. Having been involved in it over the years, we were amazed at how quickly it went for a while. Are you still seeing it escalating at a 3 to 4 to 5% per month?
We're a little bit less than that. Conceptually, we reference a percent per quarter right now as a average is what we're anticipating. 1% per quarter.
Okay.
And again, there's a lot of metrics that go into
What
that.
contingency percentages are you carrying for construction?
We've got a 3% construction contingency to take in as a contractor's contingency into the GMP. But as Steve alluded to, we're carrying, I believe,
Yeah, much larger.
well, yeah, 12, I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers, but 12% for design and estimating contingency and that will carry us until we get to a construction level set of documents.
So those contingencies being larger would give you some offset against any other escalations during the course of construction?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And that's built into the numbers I just.
We started at a 25% contingency, but as we've been developing more and more understanding about what the interior materials might be or the finishes, that contingency has come down as the pricing has gotten tighter.
I'd be surprised if they'd give you a 25% contingency when you get down to a hard price.
No, there will not be a 25% contingency. I don't expect them to ask for that, and then we would not grant that.
And all kidding aside, I mean, the market fluctuates, and its construction costs, as you know, it's hard to pinpoint. The benefit of this process, and one of the reasons we advocated for this, bringing the contractor in early as opposed to what is a traditional sort of design the project, send it out for bids, and hope that you get numbers that are good. In that process, you don't have the benefit of being able to look at different systems, different types of assemblies, different materials, and see what impact they have overall on not only the cost, but the schedule. And so I do think that it's the right approach on this, and Edifice has been a great partner in that, and don't expect that to change.
Any other questions or comments from the audience on this matter? So I would now seek a motion to approve the recommendation of our architect, our construction manager risk, and the ad hoc building committee to move forward with the early release package for structural steel.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I don't know if Councilmember Kay is raised hand. Thank you very much, Steve and Josh. Great presentation. I just encourage the entire community to look at this presentation, review this. I think they've done an extraordinary job. It's been a great team to work with, and hope that continues.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Next agenda item is consider approval of ordinance 2026-14, which is an ordinance to establish, for lack of a better term, a town equivalent to the county's Greenbelt Fund. And I'd like to turn it over to Councilmember Spencer and our town administrator, who've really taken the laboring oar in bringing us to this point.
I'll go ahead and start, and Stephanie, please jump in and correct me when I say something wrong. So this started actually several years ago in the deliberations for the comprehensive plan, Kiowa Next, and is in the currently approved Kiowa Next comprehensive plan for the town to establish an equivalent of a Greenbelt type fund. And really it comes down to what the community's ethos about environment, protecting our natural environment, protecting the environment that feeds into our natural environment, and how do we make potential strategic purchases partnered with qualified and eligible partners like the Conservancy, like Low Country Land Trust, that put together land deals, whether they be purchases with conservation easements or scraping the development rights off of a piece of property and putting a conservation easement on that. But the ultimate goal is preserving open space that protects the natural ecosystem for wildlife, for the quality of water, for the air quality, for all the things that are important to Kiowa. I spent a lot of time discussing it. We discussed it at length at the town strategic planning session in January. We had just approved the comprehensive plan after that. Got a lot of input from the Conservancy, from Low Country, from others on how they've accomplished it. We met with the town's or the county's Greenbelt Fund and others to get a good baseline about how they operate their program as we define what a town-sponsored program might look like. We came up with the jurisdiction of the Kiowa Island watershed, primarily because that's where the water in the Kiowa River is coming from. That's, it covers a lot of things of the aspect of the criteria that we would consider for the town to partner with qualified organizations to protect land. And so the watershed seemed to fit that definition. The upsides are, improved wildlife habitat, natural resources, taking development pressure off of the outer perimeter of Kiowa, all the things that matter to Kiowa. And even though, frankly, a lot of it may happen on Johns Island, in the southern part of Johns Island, it's for the benefit of not only that community, but for our community as well, because we have the development pressure gone, because we have better natural resources, better buffers of the ecosystem, things like that. So we generated, Stephanie and I did a framework document about 2 or 3 months ago, generated through council, or disseminated through council. It was generally supported. I really didn't get any negative feedback on it. It was all broadly supported. So we've taken the next steps of writing the ordinance and a policy document. The logic between ordinance versus policy document is it's harder to change ordinances. So let the ordinance be the authority to conduct the fund. And then the policy document is a more flexible way for this council or future councils to define what the fund's focus is and how it operates and things like that. I will say up front that we've gotten a lot of input on this, but you learn by doing. And, our goal right now is to get up and operating, communicate, establish, once we get through the second reading, next month, hopefully, establish the board that will review applications, get up and running, learn from it, iterate, make improvements, and stay focused. So Stephanie, was that everything? Okay. Thanks. And thanks. There are several people in the room that have helped us on this, so thank you.
Questions, comments? Councilmember Kay, Councilmember Farrell.
Ms. Kay, you want to go? You want to have any questions or comments?
Oh, yeah. Initially, I was not enthusiastic about this initiative, but the more that Lance explained how it was going to come together, the more I decided that it actually makes an awful lot of sense. There are so many things that are outside of our control that when we can grab onto something and put it at least somewhat in our control, then we should. And a lot of my concern centered around just the cost of this. But again, I don't think there's a whole lot that's more important than protecting our resources. So I am now a firm supporter. And job well done to Lance and his team.
Thank you, Councilmember Kay. Just to note one thing, what today's ordinance, and this is just consideration on first reading, does not involve any funding whatsoever.
Yeah, I meant to mention that.
That would be a separate conversation or decision made, and whether we actually adopt this and we want to consider a mid-year budget adjustment. Ultimately, it's going to simply be an interfund transfer. And even when you do the interfund transfer, it isn't really binding in any regard. That still doesn't mean you're necessarily going to fund any proposed conservation easements. It kind of depends on what we receive, what the criteria are, what the conservation values are. So we're quite a ways yet from actually, writing a check or approving anything.
And council will approve anything. The board will make a recommendation to council, and council will ultimately approve anything that happens.
So I am, I'm still struggling with this a bit. And we don't need to debate this, today here. Conservation's a great issue, full stop. Environmental conservation especially is near and dear to my heart, full stop. There's a bunch of issues we're working on where we're trying to protect the Kiowa River, watershed area, environmental conservation, water quality in particular. My concern is kind of a couple things. One, and I put on the hat like we don't have taxes here on Kiowa, but if we had taxpayers, is this the highest and best use of taxpayers' money? I think that's just a great way to think about it. And I'm going to just throw out a couple of things. We've been supportive of the Conservancy and other organizations like the Conservancy. Does this put us in competition with them, or does it increase greater partnership? I'm still having trouble seeing the vision there. The second thing is, again, near and dear to my heart from other areas, is proximity. I think the idea of defining the Kiowa River watershed as the area is the right way to do it. But as I look at the map, that area includes areas up by the airport. Is that the right way to spending money for Kiowa Island residents, the town of Kiowa residents? For me, one of the things that kind of got me on board with this is protecting the corridor. We call it the front door to Kiowa. That makes total sense to me. But then where do you define the front door? Where does that stop? At some point, there's got to be a boundary. So I like the idea of the watershed because it's more inclusive of protecting water quality. But again, at some point, the boundary becomes important to me. Is there higher and better uses for these funds? How do we prioritize parcel A versus parcel B? Those things are going to come in. And I do want to, before I go any further, one of my requirements for even entertaining this ordinance was for there to be a plan put together. And you've done a spectacular job, Lance. This is great starting point. And starting point doesn't do it justice, but it's a great place to begin to think about the ordinance. So I really appreciate you taking time and getting this done so well. I'm not saying no. I just kind of, when Larry spoke earlier, I had kind of the same, that's kind of where I was. What are we doing and why are we doing it? And what are the limits? How do we prioritize? Are we competing? Are we providing more funds or maybe providing less funds? How does this affect our relationship with the Conservancy? I want to talk about this more, but those are just some of the issues as I sit here and I think about this and we entertain this idea. The last thing I'll say is, as you know, I was very much against putting anything in the budget or earmarking funds until we got a document like this in front of us. So I again, really appreciate getting this document in front of us. What I didn't want to see then and what I don't want to see now is us allocating money and then spending it because we've allocated it. So I want us to be very judicious as this goes forward for us to think about that and not just pick a number and allocate it and then we spend it that gets back to the responsibility to, if we had taxpayers, how do we think about using taxpayer money most efficiently? So I'll stop there, but I think the work you've done is spectacular. And now it's just kind of looking through it, kind of dotting I's, crossing T's, and getting comfortable with the boundaries, I'll say broadly speaking.
Well, thanks, and I'm happy to discuss with you offline as well as you're digesting and coming up with questions. A couple quick answers, not to prolong it. It's the watershed idea was we knew we needed to put some kind of boundary on.
Absolutely.
And so it was a starting point. And that's one of the things I think we'll learn over time. And if we've got competing interests and priorities of, there's something that maybe does protect the corridor, because that's important to me as well. The front door coming in and the ambiance of that, which checks a lot of the blocks. The recommendation out of the board to the council and the decision of council may be, of course, something that's, more proximate to us, similar to how we've handled the say tax and other kinds of things. This is not intended at all to be in competition with the Conservancy or Low Country. It's, in fact, I think it's in there that it's to be a partnership. They would be the executing agent. We would not be going out and doing land purchases or our own easements. We would execute for them, and their masters are putting together a patchwork of Greenbelt funds and maybe us and some grants and some other things to execute their purchases. So, and when it comes to the money, I mean, I've thought of different ways we could do it too. We could do a mid-year budget review. I mean, technically, we can approve budget real time if we wanted to through the Ways and Means. Here's the applications we've got, and we think we're meeting quarterly. Maybe there's ad hoc. Maybe there's something worthy. Maybe we bring it through the Ways and Means process individually or as a package, more real time, as opposed to, annual, semi-annual budget review. We'll have to think through those things. I hear you on that. So that we can make balance to frugality and the appropriate use of money to try and accomplish some of these goals.
And I'll tell you up front, I have some conflicting thoughts in my own mind about this. When I think about this originally, and the way I got comfortable with this originally was thinking of it as a Greenbelt fund for predominantly Betsy Garrison.
That's
But
where I
that
started
was, and maybe this is the way I'm supposed to think, but that was really self-serving for residents of Kiowa. And I thought, is there ways to benefit the broader community that's not the town of Kiowa? And for me, a passion might be to protect small landowners who might otherwise be forced off their land because of property values. I don't want all of Johns Island to become like Kiowa Island. I like the socioeconomic diversity that we have around us, and to protect that socioeconomic diversity, to protect the diversity of land use, small farms, larger farms, wooded areas. All of that makes sense. What I certainly don't want to see is, residential developments all over Johns Island. So that's the good side of this. The hard thing for me is just getting comfortable with how do we execute on that and where do we stop and what are our priorities.
I've went through similar thought processes, so I hear you.
And you mentioned like around the airport. The fact of the matter is Johns Island is an island. And so it's surrounded by waters, well, the Stono and all of that, and stuff runs off of Johns Island, agricultural runoff, et cetera. And Lee Bundrick, Conservancy, is an extraordinary amount of work on behalf of the town looking at water quality issues and shellfish harvesting restrictions that exist in Kiowa River, in part because of some of these development pressures. It's just kind of one of the pragmatic issues. Yes, protecting water quality, protecting view sheds, aesthetics, wildlife habitat. Number one thing we always get complaints about is traffic. And the less actual development, commercial and residential development in Lower Johns Island along Betsy Garrison, Bohicket, and River up to the ingress and egress points off of the island, the less future traffic pressure there will be. So any property that's put under conservation easement is one that's not then further developed by right for residential purposes or agricultural purposes. So there is that element of it. But yes, I agree. I've had a lot of back and forth as well on trying to say, criteria. and there is still this process. I mean, ultimately, there's the policies and procedures. You've got to establish the advisory committee, which will review all the criteria. There's got to be a justification, just like there is for the County Greenbelt Fund. And one of our requirements, it's not a requirement, but I think one of the criteria and how you weight things is, this isn't just the town doing this. This is if you also leverage off County Greenbelt, state conservation bank, resiliency fund, et cetera. So we're leveraging off things where there's a collective belief there is a high conservation value. At the end of the day, the town, it's got to come back to the council. Even if there is money allocated to the Greenbelt Fund or the Conservation Fund, it still comes back as a recommendation to the council.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, a lot of this is, I think, how do we be a good neighbor to the broad Johns Island community? And this is certainly one way. And we can impact traffic. I'll take that off because I can argue both sides of that, but we can impact traffic. We can certainly impact the visual corridor for other neighbors up and down Betsy Carrison or beyond. We can be a good neighbor by, maintaining, improving the watershed. And I'll call that one out because that's one that frustrates me because we're being put in a position of having to have a septic tank here on our property. That's not going to help the watershed area. So I'd really like for us to find a way to be a good neighbor, have a good neighbor, and make sure we don't have to have a septic system for our town. But we have to build this building. So there's a lot of benefits here, and it's the right thing to do. It's again kind of how far do we go, both in terms of monetary expenditures, both in terms of physical dimensions, and up and down the socioeconomic boundaries that we can help.
Appreciate all that. To be continued on that, this is first reading, would continue. I assume you and Stephanie would welcome continued input from council members. I expect Council Member Berner will also have some thoughts and perspectives. I know you've done a good job of reaching out to everybody and engaging everybody. Any other further questions or comments at this point in time? I'm not sure we did actually. I do not have a motion to approve adoption of the ordinance, which is all it is at this point in time. The framework on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next agenda item, Mr. Gottschalk. This is discussion item, no action proposed at this point in time, although the discussion may lend itself to some potential actions. But this is to deal with issues. They've been persistent issues. I would say that they've become perhaps even more persistent given Kika's decision to remove the recycling area and the dumpsters from Beachwalker Center. And so now it's just Sora Rail in here. So I asked Brian to kind of provide us with some background and context, what we've actually encountered, what the practical issues are for the town, and different options that we might look at for addressing those.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's a good, quick background on some of the issues that we've been having. I'm gonna kind of specifically speak to Kestrel Court. That's where we're seeing most of the issues. I've got some pictures that I can share with you guys as well, and I think Neil's gonna cue that up. But while he's doing that, so for a while, years actually, we've been seeing on and off a lot of trash piling up at Kestrel Court. For one reason or another, could be inoperability of the compactor units, or they just might be full, and we're seeing people just leave their refuse on the ground. And it's become quite an issue. Pretty regularly on a Monday, we'll come into work and be notified or go check out and see that there's a big issue over at Kestrel Court. And what that does is, takes up a lot of time from me, Michael, and some other people that we have to help clean up that site. It's really unhealthy for the environment, And it's just obviously an overall terrible look for people that go to utilize that site. And further, the trash can pile up so much so that the units can't be serviced until till the site gets cleaned up. So this is a conversation that we're bringing up, we're revisiting now. We've had this conversation, just general discussion a few times. I think most recently was maybe at this retreat over the winter. We put forth the efforts that were discussed there. Higher enforcement, we've upgraded the cameras, we added an additional camera over there as well. Regular routine monitoring, we've upgraded the signage. We're still just seeing a lot of abuse and misuse of that site over there.
Let me stop you right there.
Yes, sir.
As I listened to you start, and I was thinking about how do you solve this problem, it sounded a lot like a capacity issue or capacity of machines that were working. Did you think about that in your analysis?
Yes. It's not typically a capacity issue. There are plenty of times, I would say almost the majority of the times, where I'll go over there and clean up what's been placed on the ground. I can typically fit everything into the compactors where they're supposed to go. What we're seeing is misuse of it in the way of people throwing away prohibited items that are clogging up the dumpsters, creating voids in the hole so that there's trash not falling to the bottom where the compactor can actually work and press material together. And then there's just a lot of bulky, kind of what we would consider brown trash items that would not fit in those units in the first place. And so they're just being left on the ground. And then a lot of times what we're seeing is somebody will show up, they'll see items on the ground already. They won't even look into the units to see if there's space for them to throw their stuff away. They'll just go ahead and put it on the ground, assuming that's the appropriate or best course of action. So capacity is not really an issue. It's the misuse of people throwing away prohibited items.
Somebody left a boat at the town.
Well,
They did.
Do we have the photos?
Yeah,
I had one on my phone I was trying to find. It was 10 feet or more of trash in front of everything. The compactors piled up all the length of it at one time at Sorrel Rail. Somebody gave me a heads up on the local resident on a weekend. I went over there and it was remarkable how much trash was just dumped on the ground.
It's bad behavior.
And yeah, so what I think the intention of revisiting this discussion today is to see if there's any progress or guidance that I can get from the council to take some different measures over at Kestrel Court. And like the mayor said, I think we're going to see a little bit more use of that site now that the Beachwalker Center dumpsters are no longer available to the public. Again, capacity isn't necessarily the issue, but as soon as somebody puts something on the ground, then that many more people are going to start following suit. So if y'all don't have any other questions, then I can go into some options, or maybe Mayor, you would like to present some
It looks like you've got they're coming up. One of the things we've got to determine, because it's been a persistent problem of just dumping a lot of trash there and misuse of the site, is, this is a convenience for residents and property owners. You do have Bees Ferry. The county does have a landfill, which one can go to, and that's typically where you go. The town. It's not open on Saturday. It's open from 8 to 3 on Saturdays. But in any event, I'm just saying there is Bees Ferry. We'll get there, Phil. The Bees Ferry, interestingly enough, or any typical landfill, is for the use of residents, not, and explicitly not commercial waste or construction waste. It's used for the residents. And at Bees Ferry, you have to show your ID to show you're a resident of Charleston County, and or a utility bill to show you're a property owner. This is supposed to be a facility for the use of Kiowa Island residents and property owners, but we don't have anybody there to manage to see if it's actually being used only by residents and property owners. I know we've had issued some citations in the past because occasionally you'll see a vehicle with a logo on it or something like that where you know it's not a property owner. And so we were discussing this in senior staff is, far end, the real extreme is, do we just get rid of this thing altogether? It's going to continue to be abused. And people, it's a convenience, you just got to go up to Bees Ferry. Or alternatively, do you fence it? Do you put hours? Bees Ferry, noted, does have hours. It's, I think, 7 to 4 or something like that, Monday through Friday, and then it's Saturday, I think it's 8 to 3, not open on Sunday, but it does have limited hours. And whether we have fenced this and have limited hours or, what else, we're struggling a little bit to try to figure out how best to proceed.
So another point, you mentioned the word convenience, and I wanted to bring that up too. The intention of this site historically has been a convenience site for residents. And that's going to be, when you get an oversized box to deliver to your house and it can't fit in your residential container, you're going to take it over there. Maybe you had an event at your house, a lot of guests that produce a lot of trash. You can take the excess trash over to the site. But what we're seeing is this is becoming much more than a convenience site for residents. A lot of residents that we can kind of observe are using it as more of a primary site, which again is not the intention for it. It's not built out for it the way it's constructed right now. So we really think that there's something that we can do further that can mitigate the issues of the trash piling up that we're seeing.
You and I have talked about this quite a bit, but I hate to drive expense. I do think if the abusable area is more constrained by putting up fencing or something, that potentially will be a trigger in somebody's head of, I can't fit it inside the enclosure. Maybe they're less likely to throw it outside the enclosure, or maybe they do that too. I don't know. Another thing we've talked about is housekeeping crews, especially on Saturdays, potentially abusing it. Maybe it's closed on Saturday. They're supposed to take the stuff to Bees Ferry, but maybe they all aren't. Maybe it closes at 4 every day, like we've talked about. That's same time that the staff takes off, and construction crews are leaving between 5 and 7. It's no longer available for them. I mean, they may go at 2, but that means leaving their site.
Yeah, and so with that thought process in mind, then that definitely lends itself to having an enclosure with hours on it.
I think of it like an amenity, to be honest, right now. I mean, it's not a need to do, but it's a nice to do. It's nice not to drive to Bees Ferry. Hate to punish the good behaving people for the bad behaving people. Maybe if we can remove some of the bad behavior, it's still achievable. I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah, it's a good point. That brings it down to enforcement, which we currently don't really have the resources to fully enforce that, or at least not in its full effect. We've got myself and Mike that can go over there, and we have kind of routinely been going over there, but it takes sitting over there for however many hours to maybe catch somebody. And then, we can go back and check the cameras, and the cameras do help a lot, but they're not 100%.
Definitely not the best use of your time. And you know how many times you and I end up on the phone that you're coming back from there. So.
Yeah. So, again, we have a couple of options, and just wanted to bring this back up since it has been a pretty constant issue over the last few months, and really for a long time, but pretty regularly over the last few months. So again, just wanted to make sure that the council was aware of the issues that we're having over there, what we've been dealing with pretty regularly, and seeing what the appetite is to do something else over at that site.
Yeah, I appreciate the work and the opinion about, trying to keep it open and it being an amenity. I think it's a great amenity. I use it 3 times a year, but, and I have driven to Bees Ferry. And I can guess where the abuse is coming from. It might, if there's a way we could figure out, like take 2 weeks and go over at the end of every day and see whether it's Monday through Friday or a Saturday problem. And I think there's probably a way we could use technology to help us. I would like to work to see us keep it, but if we have to regulate it, if people have to punch a code to get through a gate, if they have to scan an ID, if they have to somehow call town hall or push a button that use video to get there. So I'd ask you to be creative and try and find a way to keep it, but I agree it's in its current usage manner, it's not acceptable. So thank you.
Yeah, yes, sir. Not a problem at all. And I appreciate those ideas too. I think those are really good ideas. And I do think that there is a way for us to be able to regulate it a little bit better, whether it be some sort of push button system or the residents, they already have their barcode, something kind of like that can be scanned just to make sure that.
Not contractor barcodes either.
Not contractor barcodes.
So the thought is kind of at this point in time is do a little bit better job of kind of monitoring enforcement. We'll actually kind of have the CSOs also go by occasionally. In addition, I know Brian and Michael do. Put out some additional communication following up on, this council meeting and, let there is a risk that, at the end of this facility could be removed. But if we can't get better behavior, then we may well want to consider fencing in and closing the structure and putting hours on it. There will be some cost associated with that. Obviously, not a huge amount, but there would be some cost associated with that.
My opinion?
Yeah. Yes.
I think we've got to find a way to improve the situation, because I would be strongly opposed to closing that site. The unintended consequences of where everybody's trash and recyclables would go in the absence of having Kestrel Court are just a nightmare. So we'll have to find some other kind of solution, because closing it down is unacceptable.
I guess that's a good point. I'll be picking up more trash than I said in my early comments.
And one thing I'll just add, if we want to do a fence or any type of improvements, we probably have to look at, I believe we still have a lease, because we're leasing that site. We don't own it, we're leasing it from Kiowa Island Utility. So if we want to do any additional improvements to it, we just have to probably submit something to them for their approval. I wasn't sure if the other council members were aware that we are.
We'd also have to get a permit from the ARB because it's a fence.
That's
So
correct.
And if
We'll make sure
permit's
it's
not
painted the
granted,
right color.
Then the facility ends up just going away. That's the easiest way to solve that, notwithstanding council members' K's desire that it remain there. We'd like to have it remain there as a convenience. We just hope that will be better behavior, and it will be used solely by residents and property owners, not for commercial purposes.
I know that we've got the signs that talk about, here's what's acceptable recycling, here's what's acceptable trash. We really don't have anything talking about conduct and use of the site that I recall.
So there is a big sign that's posted really in the only place that it can be posted off to the side of the recycling dumpster. You really can't miss it. It's a big 4x4 sign that lists the intended use of the site. It has a list of prohibited items. It lists that contractors are prohibited from utilizing the site.
yeah, but all that's in a number 4 font also. It's small print.
I'll get a big sign. We didn't want it to be, offensively big, but, just something that you really can see the sign whichever way you pull into that site. And it does list what's allowed, what's not allowed. It lists the different options that if this is full or if these aren't working, please take it to town hall. It says Beachwalker Center still, so we need to update that. But it tells you to bring it here. So there's nothing about what's posted there that suggests that it's appropriate to leave anything on the ground. In fact, we give alternatives again to where you can take trash. So.
Up a new sign says if you abuse this site, it's going away.
Maybe.
So we might also want to have a sign in Spanish.
Oh,
No, I'm serious, that says to contractors,
yeah.
you know, this is not a site for contractors. So that there's, you know,
Vámonos.
And I think we can, I mean, that's a good point, and Brian, we can probably work with communications, because on our sign, if we have too much text, could be maybe that we have QR code or something that will have the important stuff on there, but then have a QR code for more information. We can figure something out.
So we don't need to belabor this. We've got citizen comments coming up in just a minute, Larry. We'll continue to monitor a little bit better enforcement. We'll revisit signage. We'll put out some additional communications, and then we'll monitor over the next quarter or so, and then figure out if we need to do something more.
Mayor, before you go, Brian, did you want to bring up, you talked about Sorrel. Was there anything about Town Hall? Or you didn't have anything, comments on the location?
Nothing super substantive. We've seen some of the same issues over here, but I think that's
Like
because
the boat being left.
like a boat being left.
I mean, this is one where it's difficult because you want to be a good neighbor, but on the other hand, this is a facility in the town of Kiowa Island, it's supposed to be for Kiowa Island residents and property owners. And what I do see is a lot of cars coming in, dumping trash, and when they leave out of here, they take a right. So it's being utilized by Johns Island, where they're unincorporated Charleston County. Their facility is supposed to be the county's facility at Peace Ferry.
yeah, this we could fence, and that might be another solution.
So thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you.
A good discussion. Now, citizen comments on any agenda items. We've moved that up because we do have an executive session on the agenda, and we want to allow citizen comments before we go to that. Phil.
Old is not easy. First, I want to apologize up front. You are correct. It is open to the public. Bees Ferry landfill is open to the public on Saturdays. The issue had come up in the past where a lot of the rental companies were taking the trash when they do the changeover on Saturday and dumping it at Kestrel Court because they couldn't take it out to Bees Ferry. They had no place to put it, and I'm not sure what they're doing about it. I, like you, use it not that many times a year, but most recently when I went there, the amount of cardboard was, every dumpster was filled with cardboard. The trash dumpster, the cardboard dumpster, and the recycling dumpster. You couldn't even get near them. So I brought my trash over here, and there was a rigid inflatable boat on top of, next to the dumpster out here. So there's obviously people abusing it. I think it's a personal need. I agree with Kay that, Councilwoman Kay, that it's something we should have and we need to have. We just have to figure out how to stop this mess. Now, when I did go over that one day, I started glancing at the cardboard. There were labels all over them. So if you want to do something about it, you can look at the cardboard, look at the names that was delivered, and find out where it came from. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Larry Wallahan, 406 New Egret. Just on the last subject, from bitter experience, things have got worse since the closure of the facility at Beach Walker. My understanding is that Kika gave significant notice to you about that plan to get rid of those 3 dumpsters. I just think it's a capacity issue over there. Yes, there may be some individuals or contractors who are abusing the situation, but I spent, along with another resident, about half an hour one very hot Sunday afternoon recently trying to get cardboard processed in there. The compactor wasn't working properly, and I'm afraid I don't think it's an abuse by less than 5% of our community. But anyway, unfortunately, not too many questions of mine on the conservation thing were answered, but I'll pass on. We're still talking about traffic management. I mean, we all must bear in mind that we still have 700 development units possibly being built on the island. So, yes, if we improve Betsy Harrison highway and stop development on the highway. We've still got an awful lot of development to go on the island, so let's not lose that fact. A comment here, I'll say, because of my European background, some Americans think I'm sort of socialist in leaning, because the Europeans generally be more socialist in politics, or with our outlook. I will just point out that basically my estimation is a third of the property taxes from our zip code, which includes a large area, comes from this small island. We make substantial donations to the island. We're putting money into Captain Sam's. I see Seabrook benefit more visually from Captain Sam's not being developed than we do, yet they're not contributing. I just get the feeling that, now with this conservation program, yes, we don't have taxes, but our residents end up paying, for $50 million we've got in reserves, which the mayor has actually commented on in the last year we've never actually utilized. Now we'll utilize it for this program, but that's great. But,
That's actually not
I heard
true.
you say that in a meeting, that we didn't utilize reserves.
That we do not, the town does not receive any property taxes.
No, I agree with that totally, but through the taxes that we pay,
What
the
taxes?
local option tax.
Okay, so a very, very minor.
Okay, but it's everything, but
Yeah,
also.
there is some, but
Also the 3 million business licenses, it hardly costs the town anything in respect to those business licenses. We pay for those business licenses. We know the cost of construction on Kiowa is 30% higher than elsewhere. So I just get the feeling that because we have so much money, we're getting a bit sort of carried away. Anyway, I'll leave it there. But bear in mind that,
I hear you.
But well, also, you'll be disappointed with this comment. I've had an hour to prepare for this morning. I understand LGIP. They're short-term investments, 4% income. Actually, recently it's been going down, unfortunately.
Recently it's been coming up, but.
But the last 6 months, last 6 months it's actually come down slightly. I just looked. So I have no problem with fixed in what we can spend, but LGIP are very short-term. Our expenditures are very long-term. There's a mismatch there. We have options. Do you agree? Okay,
Let's take this offline.
You think about that.
Go ahead. Okay.
But also, having all your eggs in one basket, to my mind, is not a good idea. I wouldn't have all my investments with one investment company. But bear in mind, LGIP is not guaranteed by anyone. It's not guaranteed by the state. And also, I did a bit of research. The audit company of the 38 billion fund has less than 20 CPAs in the entire firm. The firm has about 6 disciplines and 8 service areas. So if I were you and I had 50 million invested with someone, even though it's out of a 38 billion pot, I'd be saying to them, I want better auditors, because the state already had a fraud/error of considerable millions years ago. But anyway, I'll have to move on quickly. Sorry, this is my opportunity. The Ways and Means hasn't had a meeting for 2 months and probably won't till September. I don't think that's a good idea. Water pressure is a big issue. It was mentioned at the last meeting. What happens if we have a fire and the hydrants don't have enough pressure? It's a big problem. Freshfields, I've just been thinking out of the box here. It's not the residents' fault of the island that Freshfields or Harris Teeter is the state in which it is. There's been and I accept Harris Teeter will not want to invest in that property and haven't probably done so for years. The roof leaks, the air conditioning goes on and off. It smells sometimes. It's very stale. I don't know what we can do about that, but...
Are you suggesting the town buy out Harris Teeter?
No, not at all. not at all, but you can put pressure. I mean, just from a health and safety viewpoint, I don't know whether it's, it's healthy. I mean, some of the smells coming out of there. Anyway, I'll try to be quick, and that's it. I'm sure there are other things that I'll think of later, but thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry, as always.
I just a data point, so people are mindful of this. The town generates an extraordinary amount of property tax. An extraordinary amount of property tax, more than Sullivan's Island and Folly Beach put together. No, more than IOP and Sullivan's Island put together. $100 million all goes to Charleston County. Our total revenues are like $15 or $16 million. Half of those, almost half of those, are from accommodations and hospitality taxes. We generate a lot of taxes. We pay a lot of taxes. It goes to Charleston County. We're having that conversation, or trying to have that conversation, about whether we're getting appropriate value for the extraordinary amount of property taxes we all pay to the county. But anyway, any other citizen comments on any matter? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to move into an executive session. Got to receive a legal advice with regard to two pending legal matters, and then we just have a very, very minor personnel matter that we've got to discuss in executive session as well.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. entertain a motion to leave executive session and return to regular order.
So, second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I would entertain a motion with respect to the personnel matter that we received legal advice on in executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we suspend the PTO requirements for the new hire we talked about in executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are at the end of our agenda. Are there any final council member comments? Seeing none, then we are at 4:50 adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.